Okay, so I think that's that. Let's begin, shall we? All right, so we will start with, of course, end of World War One. Okay, and uh, 1918, November 1918. And I've tried my best to include images that would possibly connect with some of your past experiences. So like previous source base that we have done, I try as far as possible. So we have our syllabus actually begins 1918, or 1919 in fact. So causes of World War I is not really something that we need to focus too much on. Just the ideas that, okay, what led to the outbreak of World War I? How is it that Germany could argue that the Wargate Clause was unfair? So the armistice was signed in November 1918. And I put there end of World War I and formation of Weimar Germany. The Weimar Constitution was written about that time. So the German Kaiser, he fled. Okay, when it became clear that Germany was losing World War I, seeing America entering the war a year before. Okay, so they know they were sort of losing already. The German Kaiser, he handed power to his brother, Prince something, and then the brother don't want to rule, so he handed over to a bunch of politicians, okay, who met in the town of Weimar, okay, and then they made the constitution, all right, which we possibly understand as a constitution that was very democratic, too democratic at times because of two particular clauses, right? One would be the two clauses that were, I think, worth mentioning here. Just at the bottom, I'm going to type system of proportional representation. Okay, because it caused a lot of problems later on, which we will visit when we look at impact of the Great Depression. And then the other one is Article 48. So if you can't see what I wrote these two things. So these two features of the Weimar Constitution. A constitution is a set of laws. Okay, so they don't want a Kaiser anymore. So the new German government will not have a Kaiser, right? So they will have a full-on democracy. All right, that's what they call the Weimar government. How do I get rid of this thing? Go away. Okay, yeah. So these are things that are structurally problematic with the Weimar government. So you have that political problem. So whenever you are asked about, okay, what were the political problems? Yep, this is the political problem. Article 48 is the emergency law, meaning at any point of time, if if the president thinks it's an emergency, later we'll see him do this, and then he will just overrule the whole Weimar government, overrule the parliament. Okay, then system of proportional representation. If you don't quite understand, it's a system that gives a lot of okay, as long as you have a bit of votes, let's say if you even have 2% of votes in the election, you will get 2% of the seats, which is very democratic but very problematic because you cannot find a majority. So these are things structurally introduced into the Weimar Constitution to make it more democratic. But this is a political weakness. The other political weakness that a lot of people find a lot easier to talk about is the stab in the back. All right. I think this is from the slides. The idea that the German army didn't lose, but they were stabbed in the back by the Weimar politicians and by the Jews. Okay, so that is another political weakness of the Weimar government. All right. They inherited a very difficult treaty, and because of that, they always had it weighing them down. Okay, so you need to know, of course, the terms of the TOV, which later on, when we are looking at chapter 4, we'll see Hitler dismantling the terms of the TOV. So you should try to recall some of the terms of the TOV, right? Which shouldn't be so hard. I think the obvious ones are, okay, the War Guild Clause. I'm going to write the ones that remilitarization of Rhineland. Okay, 100,000 soldiers, because later I can revisit it. No thanks, no F, no subs. Okay. All right, so yeah, remember some of the terms of the TOV. Most of you don't have a problem with this. Okay, if you haven't memorized that, now it's a good time to start. Okay, so you can use this to answer questions about TOB was unfair, fair. Okay, if you want to say TOB was unfair, then you said that the terms are too harsh. Then you need to introduce to me some terms of the TOB. All right. Perhaps you want to even use war guilt clause to argue that the TOB or like some of the terms were fair, because Germany had invaded France in 1914. Germany invaded France in 1870. So Germany has a habit of invading France. Therefore, it is only right, only fair that Germany should be demilitarized. Sorry, I put that remilitarization of Rhineland. It should be demilitarization. I'm going ahead of myself. Okay, so yeah, that's TOV. You can use it in chapter 1 to answer questions about impact on Germans. You can use it. Which one is the most significant impact? Which one had the most significant impact? So you need to consider military terms, right? Being very vulnerable, is that a big problem? Economic terms, the reparations, is that a big problem? I think reparations, I should mention, I think it's tied to the war guilt clause quite a fair bit. And we're going to see it very soon. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so looking back at the timeline, you have the TOV form. Okay, the TOV, signed in June 1919, and formation of League of Nations in 1920. So I put this image because this is a very big structural problem. America wasn't in the League of Nations despite being the country that promoted the idea of the League of Nations. Right, and you can use this example a lot now that you know a bit of the future. You know that later on, when Japan invaded Manchuria, it was difficult to punish Japan because, lo and behold, Japan imported 80% of their oil from America. So if you want to punish Japan, you take away 10%, 20%, it's not going to hurt. You have to get America to stop trading oil with Japan. Okay, so that's going to be a problem. During the Italian invasion of Abyssinia, again, America not being around, whatever. Okay, embargo means you don't trade. You don't trade whatever you stop trading with Italy. All right, it wasn't effective because American companies will just fill in the gap. So Britain and France don't trade with Italy, it's fine, because American companies will be more than happy to take over the trade, right? So this was a big problem for the League of Nations. We can keep using this example as a structural problem. So when I say League of Nations doomed to fail, when you agree, these are the points that you can possibly use, because doomed to fail suggests that from day one, from the structure, it's like building a table with 3 legs. Structurally, it's flawed. It will collapse. It will not be able to do much. All right. Although some of you will say, actually, it's possible to build a table with 3 legs. Sometimes some students tell me that, but I think that's beside the point now. So yes, formation of League of Nations was a problem because the problem was that America wasn't involved. Okay, 2 words that we need to talk about for League of Nations. The first one is collective security and disarmament. These were the 2 things that League of Nations felt were the pillars of the organization. If you have collective security, right, everyone just group together. There's 42 countries in the beginning. If one country misbehaves, 41 countries is pressuring the country to act normally, act correctly. It should make sense, right? And you top this up with disarmament, meaning if everyone isn't armed to the teeth, you don't have this false sense of confidence. You will quickly accept what the League of Nations says, which brings us to the first dispute, which you could possibly use as a success. Okay, it involves Upper Silesia. Where's Upper Silesia, you ask? None of you asked, but I think I should show you. Upper Silesia is here. It's between Germany and Poland. All right. It's a relative success. I think it's quite debatable. The fact that it didn't escalate into a full-blown out war, and because so the dispute is between Germany and Poland. All right. Eventually, there was a referendum. Referendum is a poll, like on WhatsApp. Do you want to be part of Germany or do you want to be part of Poland? Click where you want to go. Right. So basically, the towns and the areas that wanted to be in Germany, they were allowed to choose to be part of Germany. Then those that preferred to be part of Poland, they chose to be Poland. An example of success. So you can use this to counter my question. The League of Nations was doomed to fail. No, it wasn't doomed to fail. There were evidences of success. Right. So yeah. Then 1922, your Washington Naval Conference. Right, you have this 5:5:3, very important. Some of you wonder, hey, why is the conference held in America? Isn't America not part of League of Nations? Okay, America is this figure that they don't want to join in the League of Nations officially, but when things are important to them, they may just pop by. You know that friend. You say, oh, let's all meet to play games after school, 4 o'clock. Then your friend said, no, I don't think I can make it. But he shows up. Then he looks at the games that being played. If the games are of something he's interested in, then he'll like, okay, I want to play. So he's non-committed. So that's America. They will attend conferences. If they like it, they will join. If not, they will just say, no, we're just a bystander. We're just an observer. They do this all the way up until Vietnam War. Okay. So yes, Washington Naval Conference, an example of disarmament that was successful. You could even use it as an example of League of Nations doomed to fail. If they know it wasn't doomed to fail, they were able to promote disarmament through Washington Naval Conference. Then you just remember 5:5:3, Japan got the 3. Okay, so next up, there's 922. So we are toggling international scene and Germany as well. And now we come back to Germany invasion of the Ruhr. I chose a picture to show you the hyperinflation. I think it's more iconic. The kids are playing with stacks of money. And okay, so at this juncture, let it be known that the invasion of Ruhr in 1923 could not have led to the rise of Hitler. Because you see, the next thing that happened was the Munich Putsch. So Hitler didn't gain a lot of votes because of hyperinflation. He still felt a need. Munich Putsch is when Germany tried to take power by force. Sorry, the Nazi party tried to take power by force and failed. All right. So just a bit about invasion of Ruhr. You could use it as an example of even the failure of League of Nations. Right. You could use it as an example of failure of League of Nations because what France did and they invaded Ruhr. If you want to know where Ruhr is, I got you covered. Ruhr is here. Okay, so Ruhr is this area beyond Rhineland. The French soldiers are in Rhineland already because when you say demilitarization of Rhineland, that means the French soldiers are there. It is a pain in the neck for Germany to have French soldiers in Rhineland. And they have to bear that. There's a lot of humiliation. Then they just cross over to Ruhr and then they occupy Ruhr. Okay, when Germany defaulted on payments, when Germany couldn't pay the second round of reparation, they paid, but they didn't pay enough, if I'm not mistaken. Right? It's like your friend owe you $10, but pay $2, then you get angry, then you invade your friend's country. Okay, I think that's where the analogy kind of dies. So, yes, okay, you don't need to go into the technicalities, but this could be an example of if you're trying to understand the weaknesses of the Weimar government, this could be an economic weakness of the Weimar government. They had to pay reparations, which perpetually bogged them down. All right. However, let it be known, in 23, this happened. In 24, the Dawes Plan was the solution. Okay, they reintroduced a new currency, the Ronten mark. If you don't know, it's fine. All right. Chancellors at that time, finance minister Stresemann. All right. Finance Minister Stresemann. I'm gonna write some stuff down now as well. Okay, all right, negotiated with US banker to reduce annual payments by extending time. Okay, it's a very simple idea, right? The Dawes Plan, you extend the, this thing needs to get lost. Yeah. You extend the, you owe your friend $100, and your friend says, okay, that's the plan is you pay me $10 per day. Then you're like, all right, I can pay you $10 per day. You paid the first $10, second $10, the third $10, you're out of money already. Then you're like, oh, wait, I can't do this. All right, so don't invade my house yet. All right, but instead, let's renegotiate. Maybe instead of paying $10 every day, you pay me $5 over 20 days. So the reparations is fixed. You cannot reduce the reparations, it's fixed. But what changes is how much you pay. So yes, the Germans, oh, very thankful to the Americans. All right. Later on, this ties Germany very close to the American economy. Because part of the Dawes Plan was also America loaning money to Germany, America investing in German industries. Yeah. So when so basically America is shouldering German economy. So when it becomes too heavy, the Americans just like, oh yeah, too heavy, get off my back. And then the German economy collapsed. Okay, so that's the DOS plan. Yeah, pretty important because you need to know that if I ask a question like, oh, the Weimar government was doomed to fail, then you can say, no, it wasn't doomed to fail. There were periods of time whereby the Weimar government did very well. Perhaps it was the Great Depression that killed it. So, so invasion of Ruhr, 23. So Munich Purge is an example. If you want to use it, it's a good example because you can also use it as an example of the political weakness. The political weakness of the Weimar government. They always have to face all these threats. Okay, you face threats, you face threats, you cannot do your main job of running the country. Just those who did the paper, I think it's I want to say Broderick paper with that Hitler looking character crawling out, and then the Hitler is using that hat. Yeah, I hope you recognize the hat. That's a very militarist hat. So the fact that the Nazis are associated with the militaries, people who want the military leaders to be running Germany. All right. So therefore, we always look at that source, if I'm not mistaken, that source E as a negative source. So Munich Purge, you cannot say Munich Purge led to Hitler's rise. Okay, I just want to draw your attention to K23. 2 years later, Hitler learns the lesson from the Munich Purge. He reorganizes the Nazi party quite a fair bit. So I'm going to jump from Munich Purge and to the Hitler forms the SS and forms Hitler Youth in 25 and 26. Okay, as to make the party more formidable, more organized. Okay, the SS will be made up of very loyal Nazi party members. So he had a group of people he could turn to, not just as for the muscle. SA was like the muscle, right? Just gangsters who are beating people up, that sort of thing. So he was moving away from that, and he forms the SS. A lot of these were things that he came up with. So this is part of his organizational skills as well. All right. So that's 25, 26. So Munich Purge cannot be an example for his rise to power. It's not going to work. So because Hitler only comes to power, I forward it down in 1933. So a lot of things need to happen first before you have that. All right. Half the time I'm just letting people in, by the way. All right. If there's an intruder, I wouldn't know also. You would have to say Jimmy Lock. All right, then y'all will know what to do. I ended the tables in your house. Okay, so that's Hitler. And then we look at the DOS plan, Locarno Pact, okay, 24, 25. These are examples of Germany actually finding their way. So if you want to use examples of, oh, Germany is actually doing okay, then you can use the DOS plan, right? The Locarno Pact. What is the Locarno Pact? Many people don't quite know. You saw it in a source before. If you did one of the papers recently, simply it was a promise by Germany, all right, to improve relations with France. So I'm going to use this map instead. To improve relations with France, Germany promised to respect their western borders with Netherlands, Belgium, France, Switzerland, but Switzerland doesn't quite matter. The borders are mountains. You can't do much anyway. So that was the Locarno Pact, to respect and to honor any agreements made about the existing border. So it actually was like, okay, Germany starting to behave itself, all right, starting to seem quite decent. Let's join them back into the League of Nations. We also use Locarno Pact as an example of like a sort of a success, but you can also use it sort of a failure. Because if you're talking about disarmament, nothing was disarmed. They simply went and they met. Look at this cartoon, okay, by David Lowe, my favorite. All right, the DOS plan. Okay, good first step in improving relations, Locarno. But can this lady, reach disarmament? It seems to be a step too far. Locarno is not good enough a stepping stone towards disarmament. Okay, that's what the source is trying to say. All right, I hope you all got that. Yeah. So for why, if you're trying to answer questions like why disarmament failed, it could be this type of things whereby the agreements that they had were simply didn't give enough confidence for countries to actually disarm. So you promise not to attack my country. Big whoop, all right? I'm still gonna keep weapons because what's a promise, all right? Yeah, we always break our promises anyway. So, okay, and so far we are in the 1920s already. So we are in the world of, chapter 1 towards the end, League of Nations. These are examples. The Italian invasion of, the Italian disagreement with Greece, the Corfu incident. You could use that as well. Italy is that perennial bully, right, in the 1920s and the 1930s. Corfu is sometime in 1924, but I didn't want to put too many examples. Okay, for failure, you can talk about invasion of Rome, League of Nations failure. For success, you can talk about Upper Silesia. Right? Both involve Germany, actually. So we move on. So this time period of, really 23 up to about 29, or some people say 24 up to about 29, Germany was experiencing a very nice, as good as it gets, I guess, for Weimar government. I think it's best illustrated by this graph. I don't use graphs a lot. I get confused quite easily by the numbers. But okay, if you look at the NSDAP, that's the Nazi party, please take note. Okay, their percentages are in 24, 6.8. 24 again, Munich time, post-Munich still 2.8. Okay, then the next election is 2.4 in May 1928. All right, see the big jump, all right, 28 to 30. It is still the Great Depression that really was this turning point in it's like the turning point. I don't have another word. All right, and then you see the jump again. Okay, spectacular numbers. Okay, the other party that also enjoyed decent numbers because of the Great Depression would be okay, I wouldn't say super high. Communist parties are always doing okay. They also experience a surge. Okay, and the only other party that you should care about is the SPD are traditionally the biggest party. Okay, the people who signed the TOV, a lot of them were from the SPD, the Social Democratic Party. Okay, they have socialist thinkings, but they are not communist, of course. All right. So they were still okay in 28, and then the Great Depression seems to really eat into their popularity. So when you say they move away from moderate parties, I know some of you like that line. SPD would be a moderate party. Of course, Center Party is also a moderate party. Some of the parties I also don't know lah. All right. So when we are talking about Great Depression later, the Chancellor Brüning, who tried to pass laws, all right, but wasn't able to. He's from the SPD. So the SPD, this is proportional representation. You see, you have many, many parties. You just compare with Singapore, we have 2 parties in our parliament. Already that can generate quite a bit of heat. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and small parties, a lot as well. All right, so there are about 20, 25 parties, 30 parties at times. So no one has majority. To pass a law, you need 67%. Look at the numbers. You cannot get near 67%. Okay, SPD at 22%. So they have to form coalition. They have to make friends. All right, if they are good at making friends, then they can make friends. If they are not, like the Nazi party, doesn't know how to make friends. All right, look at Hitler. So SPD at times they were able to make friends. All right, but because of the Great Depression, they couldn't make friends because they all had different ideas about how to solve the problem for Germany. So I'm gonna erase these things that I've drawn. Okay, close this, move back to the timeline and show you the Great Depression. Hopefully I'm not giving you a headache. All right, yeah. So Great Depression, all right. Yeah, this is an actual picture of a family selling their children. But this is in America, 4 children for sale, inquire within. Really, the kids have no idea. Probably they don't know how to read. They don't know that they're being sold. All right, but that was how poor people were. They couldn't feed their own kids. All right, so back in America, 6 million unemployed by 1932. This 29 to 33, a bunch of things happened that we should know about. I can put one text here. What is things that I say you all should know about? Okay, So we know that farmers worried about communists. All right. So they supported Hitler. Right. Then industrialists also scared of communists. So the industrialists also supported Hitler. The moderates disgusted with SPD inability to fix problems. So they also support Hitler. So that's how Hitler's Nazi Party grew. So you can give examples of uh, how Brüning tried to increase welfare, but there were people within his coalition who didn't want, so the coalition broke down. And because of that, Hindenburg seemed to just like, you all are always arguing. Just argue. I'm just going to pass laws from my office. All right. So Hindenburg sort of like declares it an emergency. Then he passed all these laws, making it seem as though regular Weimar government couldn't work. Right. So for questions about what led to the Weimar government collapsing, okay, actually the Great Depression played a big role because it really exposed the problems, the need for togetherness when you are tackling a big problem like the Great Depression. Yeah, so in Singapore, if you want to relate it, sometimes people would say that, oh, we need more opposition. But there's a time and place, I suppose. There are times whereby opposition may cause internal friction, internal squabbling to a point whereby you don't actually solve anything. Okay, so we move on. So Hitler gets appointed as Chancellor in 19. I'm just going to adjust because it looks a bit like this. Okay. Yeah, so Hitler taking his appointment from President Hindenburg, looking so harmless, right? This type of images that possibly cause, people like Chamberlain to misjudge Hitler. All right. Of course, later on, just a year later, Hitler appoints himself as Führer. All right. So now you all can think to yourself, what were the things that he did? How did he make that transition from Chancellor to Führer, right? We, of course, have okay, if you all are good students, you all are saying Reichstag fire, right? Reichstag fire decree, enabling act, one party rule, all right? Yep, only he can throw parties. History joke. One party rule. What else? Knights of the Broken Glass? No, Knight of the Long Knives. Okay, Broken Glass later. Okay, then yeah, Oath of Loyalty. Hindenburg dies, Oath of Loyalty. So all this, I put it here, right? So you all can see this is all consolidation. I have a question about consolidation. Remember your traumatic experience in prelims. Who set the paper? It's yours truly. Okay, legal means. From here, you can actually pick out legal means is enabling act, fire, Reichstag, fire decree, all are legal means. They are put into the German law. One party rule is legal. Now the long knives is not exactly legal. All right. You must also understand that just because he says it, it's legal doesn't make it legal. All right. Okay, so you all know that when you go in and out, right, it's very demoralizing for the teacher, like to hear that sound, that people go out, but then later the student come back in. Yeah, I hope so far it's okay. Yeah, it is. It should be a trip down memory lane, putting things together. All right, and as you okay, timeline works for me, like basically that's how I revise. Some of you may not really find it very useful. Okay, then we actually pick into a bit of now chapter. So chapter 2 and 4, I'm going to jump quite a fair bit. So you have Hitler appoints himself as Führer. So there's a mistake here. This is in 1934. All right. Okay, I think the mistake is because I wanted to write something here. The disarmament conference is 32 to 34. Right. Don't know if you all noticed that. Okay. So yeah, World Disarmament Conference is a very good example to illustrate failure of disarmament. It could illustrate reasons for the outbreak of war. Okay, because Okay, the big thing that Germany wanted. Okay, Germany used it as a platform to air their grievances. Right? They're like, all right, we've been punished for so long from TOB. Right? TOB was like all the way here. Right? Punished for so long from TOB. I think we learned our lesson already. Can you not make it so harsh? Can you allow the French to go down to our level? We are feeling very insecure. Or could you let us go to French level at least? Those were German demands. There were other problems with with the World Disarmament Conference. So of course you had this German demands, the rise of aggressive countries causing the failure of disarmament. You also have lack of trust because when the French say, "Oh, you want to go, you want us to go down to your level? Okay, we can go down to your level, but can I get America to guarantee that they will come to support us?" America was at the World Disarmament Conference that was organized by the League of Nations. Like I said, they were bystander, observer, okay, FOMOing, okay, but they were there. And they're like, no, 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 no. We are here not to play. We're just here to listen, we are not interested to sign any treaties with the French to come to their aid. So the French is like, oh, if no one is coming to help us, collective security is not going to work. Then we're not going to disarm. So Germany says, oh, you're being unfair. So let us, in that case, we're going to leave the World Disarmament Conference and we're going to leave the league, right? And see what you can do about it. So Germany is going to do that by 34. They're going to resume conscription rearmament, which you could also use as factors or examples of how Germany actually resolved unemployment. All right, this conscription immediately takes thousands, hundreds and thousands of people off the streets. And of course, when you have rearmament, the factories producing munitions, planes, tanks, yeah, you need people for those. So this happened. This source, I don't know whether this source was for you or not. Yeah, under the spreading armament tree, the disarmament conference sits. Was this your one of your papers, or maybe it was a different paper that we said? Yeah. So students say it looks like milk bottles. Yeah. So it is suggesting that yeah, not much is happening, not much is progressing. There's this huge weight of the weapons hanging over them. And yeah, we know that the World Disarmament Conference was a failure. So most of the sources are going to lean heavily towards that. Something else I wanted to say about the World Disarmament Conference, I can't quite remember at this point of time. Oh yes, the other big problem with the World Disarmament Conference, apart from Germany, because if you need this to answer reasons why disarmament failed or League of Nations failed, is that yeah, the lack of trust, and I wouldn't say pettiness, but again, lack of trust. They couldn't decide what constitutes weapons, or what constitutes offensive weapons versus defensive weapons. So the one that really got people to be very upset or was submarines. Yeah, they couldn't decide if submarines were offensive or defensive, and even some type of guns they argued would be offensive or defensive. Certain artillery pieces, these sort of things. Battleships, all right, because I think the British said that the battleships were convoy battleships. They're just there to escort. Yeah, so they're not there to start a war. So those are the reasons as to why the World Disarmament Conference was a failure. But we know that Germany used it as a chance to leave, and then they started to dismantle the terms of the TOB. So things like conscription they were not supposed to do, they did it. Rearmament were not supposed to do, they went on to do it. British response, classic British response, was to actually sign and to just work independently. And this would be an example of why the League of Nations also failed. The British just simply did things independently when it suited them. They're like, oh, the British are, from the time of World War I, TOB, they were the ones most concerned about the naval agreement because they had the most powerful navy. So they wanted to keep it that way. So the Anglo-German naval agreement is like, okay, German, I know you want to have some ships. How about this? 1/3. It's always about the ratio. For every 3 British ships in terms of tonnage, you can have 1 German ship. And the Germans actually signed, which basically means that even the British who signed the TOB is pretty much ignoring the TOB. Yeah, so this was Anglo-German Naval Agreement. To me, one of the first examples of appeasement. All right. Back home in Germany, what was happening? They were signing the Nuremberg Law. All right. Basically, to classify the German Jews as second-class citizens. Right. Basically, trying to define. I mean, this picture, trying to imply that Jews have a certain type of noses. So if your nose is, of a certain dimension, you are more Jewish, because there are thousands of Jews of mixed ancestry, meaning their mom is Jewish, their dad is Germanic or whatever, right? Of course, the ironies of all the ironies, this second-class citizens Nuremberg Law, that the Jews suffered. So, yeah, they suffered so much from. They are employing the same things today back in Israel. They have the same type of like Nuremberg Law style for the Arabs living in Israel. Yep. So I wish people learn more from history. They do not. Okay, so Nuremberg Law would be an example to talk about how, because I had one question just now about how Hitler's ability to solve employment was the main reason why he was able to control, but he was also able to control using force, using laws like this that are very prejudiced, very discriminatory. Right. So yes, that's your Nuremberg Law. Easy example to use. Very profound example as well in history. Okay, and along that time, the Abyssinian crisis takes place involving Italy. So okay, we did the paper on Abyssinian crisis recently as well. So it really was a very clear example of the failures of or the inadequacies of the League of Nations to really punish Italy. And for Germany, it's like the focus of this is because Germany saw it as like, whoa, the League of Nations really are pathetic. All right, so I'm gonna go for it. Okay, Hitler by 1935, he was having rearmament parades. Basically, he's not even doing things in hiding already. He's like throwing parades with his tanks, with his planes, with his guns, with his soldiers. All right, and it's all published, broadcasted. Yep, failure of disarmament. Okay, so the first gamble he took was Rhineland. So looking at the map, Rhineland 1936, Rhineland is here. So Rhineland, there were French soldiers in Rhineland. Their job was they are occupying Rhineland to make sure that demilitarized means no German soldiers can be there. The presence of one German soldier means it's starting to be militarized. All right. By the way, the French soldiers who were there, just trivia, were actually their French Arab soldiers. Right. So I link it back to a bit of social studies. We all learn your French assimilation. The French, when they colonized the African and Northern Africa, some of the Middle Eastern countries, they actually they recruited these French soldiers, these African Arab soldiers, and then they trained them, all right, brought their families to back to France, blah blah blah, all right, and then hired them to work to be the occupying force. About 70-80% of them were not really French, right? So now today they are not very warm towards the migrants who in the past they sort of like kidnap, incentivize to actually be defending France, right? So yeah, some of the rich ironies of today's world. Okay, so anyway, the French soldiers there were like confused. All right, do we shoot at the German soldiers? The German soldiers are marching in and they look really scary. The French were having their own little squabbles back home in France, all right, in their own politics. So they were, their parliament was tight. They couldn't do much. The British registered a note of protest, but essentially the British were saying like, but Rhineland is part of Germany. Shouldn't Germany have their country back in, have sovereignty over their country? Nobody likes it. If your neighbor is occupying your backyard, if your neighbor is occupying your balcony, your kitchen, whatever, all right, because of some offense you made after like 10 years, you're like, it's really, do you still need to be here guarding it? Right, I've behaved myself for 10 years. But Hitler did say that this was his biggest gamble, even more than Sudetenland, because the German army wasn't ready for conflict with the French. The French army was the largest army in Europe at that time in 1936. Of course, the French did not know that, but again, would they have wanted to go to war over Rhineland, right? Very unlikely. So of course, Germany, all right, Hitler took this risk. And when you gamble and you win, I don't gamble, so I don't know, but I've been told that if you gamble and you win, you kind of get addicted to the feeling, the high of like, oh, this one worked out for you. All right, so Hitler goes on, all right. So some of the reasons for appeasement, like for example, Rhineland, it's really because they felt that it was a very reasonable thing. The British are like, yeah, okay, we can't really go to war over this. It's quite reasonable. So this definition of reasonable broadens with time. Then the Spanish Civil War, Spain, somewhere here, let me show you via map. Yeah, this is Spain. Spain is close to France. So Spain has their civil war between the nationalists and the communists. So of course, the communists, so-called Soviet Union, has sympathies for the communists. The British and the French, they want to remain neutral, but of course they would rather see the nationalists win. They don't want communism to come in from both sides, you see, from Spain up north and from Soviet Union down from the east. So they're like, oh, okay, we don't want that to happen. And Germany is like, don't worry, guys, I'll look into it. So Germany went on to flex their they use the Luftwaffe to tremendous devastating effect during the Spanish Civil War. Okay, and they really pummeled down the communist areas, and basically they used Germany to do the dirty work that they didn't want to do. Then they sort of like, this is also a reason for peace, when they're like, oh, in our fear of the communists, let's just get Hitler to do, let's get the Nazis to be that barrier. Right, so that's another reason for appeasement. It's a misjudgment of Hitler, but also it serves their practical purpose. We don't want communism to grow. So if you don't want communism to grow, then really we need to have someone to be the barrier. And Germany fits ticks all the boxes. They are militarily dominant. They are strategically in a very potent position right in between. Yeah. So to them, like, all right, it serves our interest. Let's have it that way. So Spanish Civil War, all right, went well for Germany. Then now Germany, all right, starts to make plans. 1937, they make plans for Austria already. If you remember the Hochberg Memorandum, he knows he wants to create greater Germany. Whenever you add the word greater to a country, if you say, I want to make a greater Singapore, what does it even mean? All right. For Singapore, yes, land reclamation probably. All right, because we're an island, we can't quite, expand any other way. We could actually attack our neighbors, but that's not how we roll. But if you look at Germany, can they do land reclamation? Very hard. And then they're German-speaking people. Austria is basically, in the 1800s, there was a possibility of the German king and the German Austrian king, they're combining their kingdoms together, but there were some disagreements because the Austrian Empire had a lot of non-Germans. And that time, the German Kaiser, the king, King William's, Kaiser William's father, is like, no, Germany must be made out of Germans. So this aspect of German being very somewhat racist has been there for quite a while. Okay, so they look at Austria. Austria is a German-speaking people, so they are going to force a union. All right. There's a whole bunch of things that they did. All right. The Austrian prime minister, he goes to Germany, then he gets bullied. There's this wonderful story about how the Austrian prime minister was sort of like kidnapped for a while because they didn't let him smoke, and he was a very heavy smoker. So basically, Hitler and the Nazis, they like corner him in a room and say like, oh, you better sign this document. If you don't, we are not gonna let you out of this, this building. So they kidnapped the Austrian prime minister. Then he says he has no authority. Then eventually they let him go. They say, you come in 3 days. If you don't, okay, we will take harsher measures. So of course, the Austrian prime minister Schuschnigg, when he goes back to Austria, he tries to all right. Yeah, I mean, he speaks to the Austrian president, and he counter proposed. He says, all right, Germany, how about this? Instead of giving in to all your demands, let's have a referendum, a poll. Let's ask the Austrians, do they want to be part of Germany, or do they want to remain independent Austria? So Hitler knows this will backfire because he knows that not all of Austria wants to be part of Germany. Maybe at best you have 20-25%, not enough to win the referendum. So Hitler sends in his soldiers. He says, there's too much instability in Austria. We'll come in to observe to make sure the poll is done in a systematic manner. They will supervise it with their soldiers. Then lo and behold, 99.7%, 0.5% of Austrians voted to be part of Germany. So union with Austria, and this, if you track back to our TOB, was one of the terms of the TOB that he shouldn't have. Well, I didn't write it here, but these were the terms of the TOB: reparation, demilitarization of Rhineland, everyone done. 100,000 soldiers done. No tanks, no air force, no subs, all done already, right? Meaning all have been nullified. Okay, so union with Austria, all right. Again, the argument that Hitler gives is that I'm just uniting, I'm just bringing, this is a family matter. Famous last words. This is a family matter between the Germans. You British and French, you have no business here. So this seemed to work for the Germans because the British are thinking that, yeah, perhaps it is a family matter. We best stay away. Yeah. The British only cares about when it suits them, like then it was like, oh yeah, this is a family matter. Yeah. But coming to Singapore, you know, getting involved in our affairs, it's okay to intervene in non-family matters. Yeah. But when the Germans, it's fine for them. Okay, anyway, so Hitler is sniffing around, like, where can I find, he's like playing a game of hide and seek, where can I find more Germans? All right, so he finds more Germans in Sudetenland, like, oh, yep, Sudetenland, German-speaking people. Same story, he says that, all right, the Czechs, the Czech government is being very mean to the Sudeten Germans. It's not true at all, but doesn't matter. So Hitler plays the same thing, he's making the demands. Looking at the timeline, okay, this is just how many months after? March 1938, he gets union with Austria. He waits for a while, all right, and he says, all right, let's go after Czechoslovakia, the Sudeten crisis, where the Munich Agreement was signed. Okay, notice I put this source. I don't know whether you remember the source. Yeah, the Munich Agreement, okay, we need to pay attention to the Nazi-Soviet aspect of it. Okay, because this is a Soviet cartoon, to the Soviet Union, the British, this guy with the top hat is the British like police, is like directing the Germans, come, go take Sudetenland, go take Czechoslovakia, because that's in the direction of Soviet Union. You know, you go ahead, carry on, don't stop. There'll be no red light for you, just go away all the way. So that plays into the fear of Soviet Union, which later prompted them to want to sign the Nazi-Soviet pact, because they felt that they need to stop the Nazis, the Germans, because the British and the French are encouraging German aggression towards Soviet Union. Okay, so anyway, Munich Agreement was signed 1938. Right. Chamberlain flies back and forth, makes three trips to Germany to meet with Herr Hitler, to, you know, and he says like, yeah, I've looked this man in his eyeballs, in his eye sockets, and I can trust him. He will not lie to me. Right. Munich Agreement, he will not lie to me. He says he wants just the Germans in Sudetenland. We give it to him, matter closed. All right. I wave a piece of paper. I'm the best. I prevented World War II. Okay, so that's 1938. Back in Germany itself, all right, the Nuremberg Law, okay, the second-class citizens of the Jews, in November 1938, the night of the broken glass, where Germans were, where the Jewish populations of Germany in some parts were directly attacked. They had their shops vandalized, their synagogues burned. Yeah. Okay, there were accounts of the German firefighters who were very angry because they were blocked from the streets by the SS from attending to the fires. All right, they only allowed the firemen in when they realized that the fire was getting out of control and there was a Nazi official living nearby. That was why they put out the fire eventually. So now at the broken glass, we see a worsening of the prejudice against the Germans, the German Jews. So all these things was happening. So by right, the alarm bells should be ringing in Britain. Hey, this is no ordinary leadership. They are allowing places of worship to be burned, to be destroyed, with impunity. So Hitler didn't get his war. Nonetheless, March 1939, he invades, he breaks the Munich Agreement. And that's the beauty. That's the important thing here. Because the invasion of Czechoslovakia was the end of appeasement policy. There was an end date. Hitler did not know. I mean, now with hindsight, we know that was the end date. The British decided, okay, we will not have appeasement anymore. But what appeasement has done for the past few years is to convince Hitler that he was unstoppable. So when you're answering questions, Hitler alone was responsible for the outbreak of war. Yes, you can talk about his aims, his determination, his plans, his actions. But you need something to counter. You can talk about the weaknesses of the League of Nations. You can also talk about the appeasement policy. You created a monster, all right? He was a tiny monster. You created a bigger monster because you kept on giving in to him. And of course, the British argument is that, yeah, we sort of had no choice. He was a small monster, big monster. Even as a small monster, we felt that we could not deal with this small monster, presumably. Right? So March 1939, he breaks the end of appeasement. All right, somebody else left. What Britain and France do, they fly over to Poland. They're like, okay, all right, our bet on Czechoslovakia, we should have done more, but they're pretty far away. Too bad to the 3 million strong army that could have provided us with a lot of support. But okay, that's us. Okay, that's on us. But Poland, we will not let you down. Right? And this time around, they actually meant it. All right. They meant every word. And the Germans are looking on and they're thinking, Hitler, he's not going to stop. He wants Poland. All right. He wants, okay, Danzig. Look at this. This is called the Polish corridor. It actually divides Germany. All right. And East Prussia, if you don't know, a lot of the German generals are from Prussia. That's the traditional military stronghold of Germany. And there's this like a Poland running through it. Yeah. So it's not a good arrangement. I don't agree with the geographical arrangement. This was a TOV arrangement. Nonetheless, Hitler makes claim for Danzig. All right. He makes claim for parts of the Posen even. There are a lot of Germans here. Again, he's going to use my greater Germany argument. Yeah. So Hitler calculates that, all right, maybe 50-50, maybe the British will help the Polish, maybe they won't, but I just want to lock in my alliances. So they send over a dispatch. All right, dispatch is that they were okay. They send Ribbentrop over from Germany to the Soviet Union. All right, send Ribbentrop over, asking, look, Stalin, do you want to be friends? We can be friends. All right. Soviet Union is like, but you just signed a pact with Italy called the Anti-Communist Pact. Then it's like, no, don't worry about that. That's just our pact. We didn't have a better name for the pact. Don't worry about that pact. All right. You and I will sign the Nazi-Soviet pact. All right. We'll put our differences aside. It's a non-aggression pact. Let's look for the things we like. We both like territory. All right, let's divide Poland. Poland's all right. We know Soviet Union likes Poland. So Poland used to be part of the Russian Empire. So yep. So this was go for it. Okay. So some of it was called the Non-Aggression Pact, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Non-Aggression Pact. Secret terms of the pact was that they will carve out Poland. There'll be a German sphere. Remember that the source, they exchange the presents. Yeah, it's all coming together now. It also meant that the Soviet Union got this sphere, all these territories, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. They tried to fight Finland, they got defeated, which actually later, the Finland joined the side of the Nazis, but they were also part of the Allied forces. It's a bit confusing. So Nazi-Soviet pact signed, Soviet Union, we know why they signed the pact, because they were trying to be friends with UK. Yes, Alan. My first question. Alan, you want to ask something? Or do you fall asleep on the keyboard and you press the raise hand thing? Sure, go question. So that's not Alan, you just okay, fine. No first question for today. At this point of time, Alan, what's your question? Are you saying something? I cannot hear you. Right. Okay. Anyway, maybe I should pause for a bit. Any questions so far? Am I even making any sense at all? 1 hour has passed. I'm monologuing at home, so it's kind of weird every now and then. Yes, Kangche.
Okay,
Kangche, you
so
of
so
course questions. Okay, never mind. Come, ask the question.
so just now you mentioned that the Munich agreement, right? You cannot use it as a way that Hitler rise to power, right?
Munich Agreement. No, it's way long
Sorry,
time.
I mean sorry, not the Munich agreement, the
Yes,
Munich the Munich putsch.
yes.
Yeah, you cannot use that as Hitler's rise in power.
Yeah, are you worried about your own Sec 3 exam?
No, it's just that because Hitler was also able to share some views
Mm.
because of this Manish put whatever I don't
Mm.
really know how to pronounce this word,
Yeah, yeah. It's a cool
but
like exam. Yeah.
yeah.
So okay, just to address that, you can use it, but as the only evidence, I mean this pertains to everyone, as the only evidence in a paragraph, then you cannot have a outcome. You see, you cannot say, oh, because of the nationwide coverage in 1923, he's managed to speak to the judges. They all print. His name became famous. Then 1923, 10 years later, he was appointed as chancellor. Cannot. So you must bring in that. Oh, with that fame, he used it to his advantage. And over in the late 1920s, he used his newfound fame to engage with more audiences after the Great Depression. He went around the whole country. Hitler was the first to pioneer using helicopters to go to 3 places a day. Of course, he would shoot, you know, drugs into his system so that he has that energy. But he was someone who was innovative in that sense because he realized that before that, the politicians they would travel on trains and all that, and they would do at most one public speaking rally in about a week maybe. But Hitler was like, yeah, helicopters. He will go all out. He will make sure that when the helicopter kind of like lands, people can see him. Like the imagery I told some of my classes that like he's like descending from the skies. Like he's like, yeah, like a very holy figure. Yep. Okay.
Okay, thank
Question.
you.
No problem, Kancha. Uh, Anybody wants to know about the? By the way, I invited my Sec 3 students because I was scared no one would show up. All right, so I invited my Sec 3 students. Uh, Questions about Munich Agreement, maybe Nazi Soviet Pact, anyone? Or yeah, anything about what I've mentioned so far? Because I think I'll be able to end by 12. I mean that was my intent. Uh, me reply to a teacher for a while. Yes, Ellen. I don't know what's going on, Ellen. I think are you on your phone or something? Okay, so no questions. That means I'm doing a tremendous job. Good job, Mr. Abdad. Uh, so let's move on. Yep. So Nazi Soviet Pact. All right. They share Poland ever so nicely. What's a good map to show? Okay, maybe this map. Yeah. This is how they actually shared Poland. All right. By then, you have Hungary and Romania are on the side of the Axis, so they are taking chunks as well. So you see how Poland has really got nowhere to run. Uh, yeah, because Hungary is not really a friendly country. Britain and France, can they come and help Poland? Okay, you can't see them here. Let's look at this map. How to help Poland? Okay, unless they can teleport. Britain found it very hard. I told people about France. So France declares war on Poland, right? Because Germany invades Poland. France declares war on Poland, makes good ground into Germany. All right. They were so surprised by their own success. So what did they do? They are in Germany already, having carved territory from Germany. They have declared war against Germany. And then they're like, oh, I think we are too successful. We might just piss the Germans off too much. Let's retreat. Retreat from territory that they have fought and won in a war, because they don't want to poke Germany too much. Insane. The Polish army was waiting for the French to come in so that the German troops will fall back to try and defend against the French. They were left. The Polish army waited and waited and waited. Yeah, the reinforcements didn't come. So that's the story of Poland. So Poland was gobbled up. So France, serves the French right. When, I'm very proud of, I came out with this late last night. French fried. Okay, the French surrendered after 6 weeks. All right, very much. Remember, they fought 5 years. The Germans fought 5 years. In World War I in the trenches, and they, through the German blitzkrieg technique strategy, they were able to force France to surrender in a matter of 6 weeks. All right, so that's a spectacle in itself. So right, just to show you the flow of events. September 39, invasion of Poland. Britain and France issued ultimatum, then they declared war. More countries joined in, so it didn't make sense to call it the German-Polish-Soviet War, the German-Polish-Soviet-British-French War. So, World War II was coined. If you are curious, which can just take me a sec. Okay, what did Germany do after they got Poland? They went to, they managed to sign a neutrality with the Swedes. Basically, the Swedish iron was like fantastic. So the Germans didn't want to rock the boat. The Swedes, as long as they supplied iron to Germany, that would be good. The Swedish also supplied some fuel as well. So the Germans went on to fight the Danish, the Norwegians. Then they defeated the Danish, the Norwegians. They went to fight Netherlands, Belgium, and then France. Right, so they went up north, down, France. So now Europe looks very Germany already, looks very Axis already. So they then they started the Battle of Britain, trying to knock Britain out. As you can tell, Britain is not connected by land. That is the saving grace of Britain. So the Germans thought that the only way to defeat UK, to defeat the British, they need to have dominance over the skies. Hence the Battle of Britain, the Luftwaffe, formidable, versus the British, the Royal Air Force of the British, who were then somewhat supported by Polish pilots, French pilots who didn't want to surrender, American pilots. So it was quite a decent sized Air Force as well. So they felt that, if the German Luftwaffe can defeat the British Air Force, then they can launch their Operation Sea Lion. Very cute name by the Germans, Operation Sea Lion, to take on the British Navy, and then to finally land in UK to fight the British. That didn't materialize. And after a year, the Germans actually gave up. This is a very abridged version. And then Operation Barbarossa, where they will attack, turn around, and they will attack Soviet Union. That means they will fight a war on two fronts, which you can use that as an example of a possible mistake Hitler made. Because there were a lot of German generals who advised Hitler that, all right, things are not going according to plan. We wanted to knock Britain out of the war. Britain is still in the war. That means we cannot just go ahead and launch Operation Barbarossa. We can't, right? Anyway, Barbarossa, why the name Barbarossa, if you're curious, is the name of a German conqueror in like the time of the Crusades. I think he launched the Third Crusades in the early, 1100s, 1200s maybe. So anyway, but that had nothing to do with fighting the Russians. So he was advised not to invade. He went ahead to invade. Stubborn Hitler. All right. By then, he believed his own myth. So we look back at the timeline. So French defeated 1940, Battle of Britain 1940 until late 1940. It continues, Battle of Britain. All right. And then after about a year, they kind of realized, you can tell after a year, they're like, oh, I'm getting bored here. There's no real definitive success. It's not as though the British destroyed the Luftwaffe. It's just that the Luftwaffe realized they cannot destroy the Royal Air Force. somewhere there was the Dunkirk thing, but we're not going to talk about that. So he launches Operation Barbarossa. The largest land invasion until today is Operation Barbarossa. All right, three military divisions. All right, millions of soldiers. All right, their target was Leningrad, Moscow, and Kiev. All right, so that's Operation Barbarossa. Fierce fighting. Hitler makes a bunch of mistakes. He thought that the war would be over in a matter of okay, this is, yeah, let's look at the timeline. June, he tells the German soldiers they'll be back by Christmas of 1941. All right, therefore, if back in Christmas, he's gonna pack, the German army is not gonna pack heavy. That's how confident they are. They're not gonna pack winter clothing. Okay, the temperature went down to -30. All right, it was a disaster. So yeah, these are a bunch of decisions made by Hitler. Right, he believes in his own nonsense. After a while, any German generals who wants to question him, they were get thrown out quite fast. Okay, so Operation Barbarossa didn't go well. I mean, they captured a large chunk of Soviet Union. Okay, but okay, things didn't go well. December 1941, USA declares war on Germany in response to German declaration of war against America. Because actually, America only declared war against Japan. In Germany, it's like, yeah, we want in, right? For some reason, right? So, okay, that was because of the Pearl Harbor attack. And yeah, the war didn't go very well for Soviet Union. I mean, they managed to capture Kiev. Okay, they were very close to capturing Moscow. Right, they only had laid a siege on Leningrad. So these are the three things that they wanted to get. They only got Kiev. Moscow, they were there, but again, one of Hitler's decisions was to actually turn some of the troops heading to Moscow, turn it down to the Caucasus to collect more grain and collect more oil. Whereby the general said, yeah, those are important, but we need to get to Moscow by a certain time. Right, Soviet Union has two important generals, General Zhukov and General Winter. That's a joke. There's no General Winter, but Winter always seems to save the Soviet Union. And then, of course, the turning point of the war in the east would be Battle of Stalingrad. Hitler's mistake then was to actually tell his Sixth Army, the German Sixth Army, that they cannot withdraw. Okay, General Paulus kept asking for permission to withdraw so that his hundreds and thousands of soldiers could withdraw from Stalingrad. The Stalingrad was not of any strategic value, but Hitler's idea and Goebbels' idea was that this battle would be like, the movie 300, whereby you lose and die, but it's so heroic that the rest of the army will then just like be inspired. That was his thinking. It didn't work out that way. Okay, Stalingrad. Okay, Hitler. The lie the Germans always say is that the Soviet army is it's a decadent kind of like structure or very frail structure. It looks very big and huge, but all you need to do, the super Aryan German, all you need to do is just kick the door down and the whole Soviet Union will collapse. That did not happen. Okay, look at the Russian soldiers, they mean business. All right, they just kept on coming. And it was very demoralizing for the Germans because in their own chain of command, they're thinking, wow, I think we have killed a lot of Soviet soldiers already. They should be about done. Then they just faced more and more. And he was able to bring in very elite soldiers from the Siberian region, from the Chechen region, because they hated Stalin. But they had a very powerful slogan in the Soviet Union, which is "Save the Motherland." Russia is theirs. They have to save Russia. So they put their the hatred of the Soviet Union aside. The Soviet Union was able to reorganize themselves. The one good thing about Soviet Union was that they didn't listen. I mean, they don't. Stalin actually, let go of authority to Zhukov. What the name of the other guy who was leading Stalingrad? But basically, competent people, experts were leading Soviet Union. They were making calls on the field of battle. Right? They had very good equipment. The T-34 tanks that they used were simple but very effective against the Germans. And basically, the Germans cannot fight in Stalingrad. Stalingrad is a city. Their blitzkrieg doesn't work. Blitzkrieg needs to work on like very open spaces where they can use their speed to their advantage. All right, yeah. So anyway, Battle of Stalingrad, turning point for the Eastern Front. The Eastern Front, okay, is here. Okay, Eastern Front is here. All right, so Stalingrad is somewhere here. So after Stalingrad, okay, the Soviet army kept pushing and pushing. All right, and they entered Poland by 1944. Eventually, they entered Germany. All right, so Eastern Front, that's what happened. Basically, the way they defeated Germany is that they pushed the Germans back all the way into Berlin from the Eastern Front. What about the Western Front? Okay, you would first have America joining in the war, right? But America took very long, right? They joined the war, and this is like some of the things that later played into Stalin's suspicion because they entered the war sometime in 1941. Okay, D-Day was 1944. So this long waiting time to actually enter the war proper was a big problem. Of course, Britain, America had a good excuse. They had to first cross over the Atlantic Ocean to get to Europe. And the Atlantic Ocean in the 1941, 42, 43 was controlled by the German U-boats. Right, the Wolfpacks, the German U-boats, they pretty much dominated all of the Atlantic Ocean. It was only in 1942, 43, the Americans did a bunch of things. They improved on their radar technology. It wasn't called radar back then, but they improved on that technology to be able to detect the German U-boats. They were able to churn out more ships, better ships that could protect the convoys. They managed to move some of their some of the military bases into Iceland. All right, that way they came in from a different point. I mean, if you watch the movie Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, maybe that also played a role in weakening the U-boats for a bit. It proved then, but I think the game changer was, of course, the Bletchley Park, that Enigma code, being able to decipher German communications. All right, that was the game changer. The Americans were able to then take control of the Atlantic Ocean. All right, so when you can take control of the Atlantic Ocean, what you can do is to then, right, America could then bring their soldiers all the way to the UK, right? So now they can land in UK. The Canadian troops can land in UK as well. So they are now all here. They're thinking, all right, now we need to enter Europe. All right, we need to fight the Germans. Okay, the Soviets are already here already by then. By 1944, the Soviets are, yeah, near Germany already. Then the Americans and the Canadians landing in UK, because now because the Atlantic Ocean is somewhere here. This is the Atlantic Ocean. They have managed to cross over the Atlantic Ocean confidently. So they're going to land in France. Okay, that's your Operation Overlord. Okay, they feigned that they were going to attack Pas-de-Calais. They attacked in Normandy. All right, they managed to break through. All right, fought their way, Battle of the Bulge, fought their way into Germany by December 1944. And it was a race to Berlin from then on. Okay, so the irony, of course, the only reason why Soviet Union was able to be faster than Americans was because the Soviet Unions were using American tanks, American jeeps. All this was sent through the Lend-Lease Act. So America's role in defeating Germany is quite substantial because they were really supplying a lot of the equipment, a lot of the food. All right, there were times whereby the Soviet soldiers had better American food than American soldiers. Okay, that was Roosevelt. Roosevelt is a very has this set of principles. I mean, they are all fighting the good fight against the Germans. So when he felt that the Soviets were struggling during like the Stalingrad battles, he ordered the Allied forces to actually send the better canned food over to Soviet Union, and like the American soldiers were like terrible, feeling like, how is this even possible? How are we getting worse food than the Soviets? All right. So anyway, that eventually forced Germany to surrender, being attacked from both fronts. Okay, there was not much they could do. At the end, the last few people who were fighting, defending Germany was pretty much the Hitler Youth. Okay, so let's look back at the map. All right, so here already we see the end of this is end of chapter 6, but just focusing on the European theater. Okay, yep. So questions about what we spoke about today. Hopefully it was somewhat useful. Oh, Alan, you texted me your question. Ryan raised his hand. Which Ryan is this? Okay, spelled with an A. It's Ryan from B2. Oh, Ming Yang has. Okay, no. Right. So yep. What did America do? Okay. So between this, it's a good question. Okay, I didn't cover it in grade that. Between this 1941 to 1944, what did they do? It's basically Battle of Atlantic, and the Americans were of course fighting in Asia. So you see, America was properly fighting in two theaters. Right, your island hopping in your Battle of Midway. So they had that battle in the Pacific Ocean. They were trying to win the Battle of the Atlantic. They were within this time period, right? The things that they were doing would include like destroying German supply lines of fuel. They would be destroying German factories. Yeah, it's to actually destroy the ability to replenish themselves. Yeah, within that 3 years, and using the American Air Force. But to use your American Air Force, you need to have some control over the Atlantic Ocean. And that was what they were doing up until they could do Operation Overlord. They controlled the Atlantic Ocean by late 1943. So they still needed 6 months to train, to bring in their logistics, because it was a very dangerous mission. Eason Battle of Stalingrad in July. Yeah, I look at some dates. Basically, you know that it doesn't end in 42, right? It crosses over because it ends in 1943. The winter of 1940. It has to pass the winter. Yeah, don't be yeah ask me this sort of question. Isn't it July? Fine, sure, whatever. It's not a big deal. I have 30 dates here. I'm bound to get 1 or 2 wrong. Come questions? How about you think about, did I miss anything out? Because I'm looking at the chat questions that I put in. Hitler was responsible for the downfall of the German army. So you would need to talk about if you agree, you talk about German mistakes, Hitler's mistakes. So things like war on two fronts, things like telling his German soldiers in Stalingrad that they cannot withdraw, told General Paulus they cannot withdraw. To me, that was a very big mistake, because there was no need to destroy your whole Sixth Army like that. There were close to 100,000 German soldiers taken prisoner. You could have used the 100,000 soldiers any time of the day, any time during the war. They had opportunities to withdraw. He said cannot. No retreat. Stupid. It's a matter of pride. Stalingrad is of no value. To win Soviet Union, you have to take Kiev, Leningrad, and Moscow. Stalingrad is of no strategic value. It's a matter of pride. That itself, the decision to fight in Stalingrad was also considered Hitler's mistake. But if you don't want to say Hitler was responsible, you disagree Hitler was not responsible for the downfall of the German army, then you give credit to Soviet Union for killing 80% of the German soldiers. All right. You give credit to America for being responsible in supplying the Soviet Union, in opening up the Western Front, Operation Overlord, all that. Did I? Yeah, I think I did address most of these questions. If I did not, you can call me out on it. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording at least. All right.